everyone, and thank you for the afternoon. I will do a quick introduction. Mark Whitley from EMCO, Kelly House, Scotiabank, Jane Button, Scotiabank, Greg Sauter, Saskatchewan Roughriders, Ron Stiles, SaskTel, Mohammed Torjisi from U of S. Competitors, we have a maximum of 20 minutes to present today. Immediately following the presentation, judges will have a total of 5 minutes to ask the presenters questions. During this time, during your presentation time, I will show you time cards. Even during the 5-minute questioning, I'll give you a 1-minute warning and I'll knock for the 30 seconds, just so that the judges are aware where we're at. Audience, there's no questions, comments, cell phones, picture taking at the time. Please ensure that your cell is off or on vibrate. The audience, you are not allowed to applaud during the presentation. Please hold your applause until after the answer period. Audience, you're not allowed to wear any of your school colors to represent your school, and we ask that immediately following the question period that you leave so that the judges have time to fill out their scorecards. Give me 1 minute and we'll get started. Just confirming that you are Team H. Thank you. When you're ready.
Good afternoon, Mr. Gregoire, Mr. Jones, and Mr. Smith. With my associates Lydia, Eric, and I am Zach, we form Impact Consulting. With 1,000 active clients, this auction house that you are seeking to purchase is by no means the leader in the industry. With 3 dozen competitors, including a competitor that owns 60% of market share, this company is not the out-and-out choice for immediate financial gain. But similar to yourselves, we believe that there's potential in this company. With 70,000 entrants into the market, we believe that you can capture these, and we believe that Borealis Auction House could be a profitable enterprise both in the short term, in the medium term, and the longer term, should you choose to pursue an IPO or should you choose to sell to a competitor. Looking at 3 immediate issues that face Borealis Auction House today, first would be the acquisition strategy. You seek to purchase this business with the help of a bank, and in preparation for your meeting with Mr. Lim to acquire that bank loan, we have developed a business strategy that will allow you to acquire that loan and to see those profits. Secondly, a growth strategy. How do you grow this business with only 1,000 active clients into a profitable enterprise for yourselves and generate great return on your investment? The third is an exit strategy. We understand that you are looking towards potentially selling this business to a competitor within the next 5 to 7 years or pursuing an IPO. With this strategy, we believe that you will not only be able to sell this for a gain, but one that will necessitate a great return on your investments. The question that we seek to solve today is what steps should you take in order to optimize the acquisition and operations of Borealis Auction House?
So in order to look into this acquisition, first we wanted to present you an analysis of Borealis Auction House today, looking at the industry they operate in, them as a company, and their end customer and what they're really looking for. So starting out with the industry is really dominated by a company's ability to acquire those high-value items which people will want to come out to the auctions to purchase and really drive the price up. They're also going to be their profits are also heavily reliant upon the contacts they have in the industry. Who they are able to bring into the auctions to both sell and purchase items really dominates how successful they can be. And finally, it is highly fragmented. As Zach mentioned, there are quite a few competitors in the market, so it is quite difficult for one company to grab a lot of the market. Towards Borealis as a company, a big strength for them is their full service ability. Not only do they have the auctions, they also do the appraising and the acquisitions of companies which are being liquidated. This allows them to really give a full service offering to their clients, whether they need different parts of the market and they don't have to look elsewhere for those services. Looking towards their weakness, their big weakness right now is that weakened cash flow they currently have. Currently, they are using that line of credit in order to really pay out the dividends to their owners, which is weakening their cash flow. Other of their competitors have been reinvesting that cash in order to grow, and that lack of growth has really held back Borealis in the past. Looking towards an opportunity for them right now, the Canadian recession is a large opportunity for them. There will be a lot more equipment on the market from companies being liquidated or people having to sell off assets. Therefore, their services will be more valuable moving forward. Finally, a threat currently in the market is the emergence of online competitors, allowing people to not be constrained by where they live for which equipment they have to buy. So people are able to go online, really seek equipment from all across Canada and not have to physically get in a vehicle, go to the auction house to be able to purchase that equipment. Finally, looking towards the customers, the end consumer who are going to be buying these equipment from the auctions. Firstly, they do look for those high value items. Secondly, they are going to be looking for being able to get in the most efficient manner and at the lowest price, so they're really going to be looking to be able to get the best bang for their buck. They're not going to be looking to be overspending by what else is out on the market. And finally, a financial analysis. Currently, their current ratio is 1.508. That shows they do have a very strong current asset to current liability, so they are in a good position. Secondly, they do have $2,000 available on a line of credit that allows them to really borrow when they need to, and that is a moving average. So they have a $3,000 limit, so they really can, when they need more money, they can get it in a quick way. They don't have to keep going through the bank. And finally, their retained earnings currently is quite low. As I mentioned before, that payout of dividends is causing their retained earnings to be low in the current term. However, we would say they are in a stable financial position. They have a lot of assets, they don't have a lot of liabilities, they are functioning at a profit year to year, so they are in a stable financial position to looking into it to acquire it. Looking at actually acquiring the company. So right now they're valued at around $500,000 and you really want to know, is that $500,000 worth it? We looked at three main things to see how that would be, how we would analyze that purchase for you. First of all, the total assets. They do have quite a large amount of assets, over $500,000, with their total liabilities being just over $100,000. So they do have quite a large amount of assets for you to look into the purchase. And then finally, their future profit potential is around $215,000. This was calculated by taking the profit potential which you outlined and really taking out any of the changes which you saw moving forward. So just allowing the company to operate at their current rate, bringing it back to today's dollars, that does give $215,000. So with that, when you look at that, the assets and the future profit potential, and you take off the liabilities, that is quite a bit over $500,000. So we would recommend that if you are able to purchase a company at that $500,000 asking price, to do that right now.
So now that we have decided to acquire this company, where do you go next? So before we outline our three alternatives for growth, these are the criteria that we have used to evaluate them. So first, looking at risk. Yourself as entrepreneurs and of course the bank that you will be approaching understand the need to really balance that risk with a potential reward. So although there's no way to have a no risk plan, we are really looking to minimize this for you. Second, looking at financial feasibility. As Eric mentioned, Borealis really is in a stable financial position. Make sure that you are able to build up a significant amount of cash and that this plan will not be really taking away from that. And third is growth potential. As you've said, you want that 5 to 7 year exit strategy. So we really want to make sure that we're significantly growing that company value so that you are able to get that really large return on investment. So looking at the three alternatives that we have for you today. First, focusing on the most profitable business segments. Right now, you do have that Borealis does have that full service package with those three big business segments. So what we mean by this is dropping that one with the lowest profit, in this case being appraisals, so that you're really able to focus on-site auctions and really creating a presence all across Canada. And third, we looked at creating new avenues to customers. So what we mean by this is really looking to grow that diversity of your customer segment, as well as focusing on that online trend. So by capitalizing on this online trend, you're able to really grow your client relations and the touch points, the way that they are able to interact with your company. So now looking at the evaluation of the alternatives, first when we looked at just focusing on 2 profitable segments, we did find that this was financially feasible, and we found that it was low risk, as you are really just focusing on that manpower on just 2 activities instead of 3. However, we don't see it as having really significant growth potential. As we said, one of your major strengths is that it does offer really that full service package. So we see this as being a big selling point to customers. So we do see this as being a potential negative when you looked at client attraction into the future. Second, looking at Western Canada, we see this as not being financially feasible. Although you would be able to really leapfrog that growth, really start growing into this new segment right away, you would be needing to and 2, really expand your manpower so that you were able to successfully run not 1 but 2 locations. So we don't see that as being financially feasible right now. Third, when we looked at new customer avenues, we saw that this was financially feasible. The main costs that you would be implementing would be the online costs as well as marketing costs, and we do see it as being fairly low risk. You're actually diversifying your customer segments. You're no longer as reliant on one industry. And finally, we see it as having large growth potential. You're able to really grow that consumer base, grow your online sales, and use this to potentially expand to other locations into the future. So we do recommend that you follow this avenue to create these new customer segments. That brings us to our recommendation of Connecting for Growth.
Connecting for Growth is divided into 3 phases. The first phase being connections. How do you connect the understanding and the appreciation of this business area with the people and the customers who want it? How do you connect that knowledge? How do you connect those products with the people who are craving them? Second is technology. There's currently a wealth of technology available to help you run your business more efficiently. By running this business more efficiently, you will increase your profit and the overall value of the business. Third is prosperity. Now this step primarily focuses on how do you tighten up those operational efficiencies and how do you really get to increase the value of your business in the longer term, that 5 to 7 years when you're interested in potentially selling to a competitor or when you're moving towards an IPO. In Connections. Connections begins by using the new management's contacts to generate business. For example, Mr. Smith, you have a great wealth of information and contacts in the construction business. You've been in this business for over 40 years. Within this, you should be able to pull on your contacts to generate more machines, more pieces to be auctioned off, as well as more companies to work with. Secondly, growing the business with the banks. So one of the lines of business that Borealis currently uses is working with banks, credit institutions, businesses like this for, lack of debt repayment, bankruptcy, things of these natures to have machines to sell. By increasing the number of machines that you're getting and the appraisals that you are doing specifically for banks, credit unions, or single companies, you are increasing the number of units that you have to put up for auction. What this does is this will reduce the risk of you postponing auctions due to the lack of inventory. Third, place marketing materials in machine shops. So this is the marketing strategy that you seek to find to really match those units and the inventory with customers. For example, you had mentioned that continuing to place more advertising in trade show and industry magazines was of interest to you. We built that into the marketing costs, but additionally, we wanted to give you a plan that would help you really, again, reach the customers that are looking for it. Machine shops is an example of customers who have current units that they're looking to service. Typically, units that require a great deal of service are older units, things that people will consider selling and purchasing a new one. By partnering with these machine shops, you are creating a new customer base by linking those machinists and those people that work in manufacturing shops, in repair shops. By doing this, you allow these mechanics to not only go to you with their own machines and their own pieces of equipment that they're looking to sell or looking to purchase, but you also imbue these customers who are going to get their machines fixed. Targeting these with these repair shops, you're also targeting those who have currently purchased a new item and are looking to maybe upgrade or downgrade based on the needs of their business. So, after 3 months of onboarding with the current staff, We hope that your ownership group will learn the business a little bit better. You mentioned that one of the concerns for your business and for your business group purchasing Borealis Auctions was to better understand the auction business and to really leverage that human capital that comes from the COO and the COO, the CEO. The COO being, leverage from the COO, the CEO, as well as the connections that they currently have in the industry. Transfer meetings with goodwill to these clients will allow you to retain these clients and build deeper connections with them. Allowing you to set up these one-on-ones will, again, with Mr. Gardner, your COO, and Ms. Adams, your CEO, these connections and move forward into the future. By doing so, you'll be able to imbue these client surveys to give feedback. How do you better serve these clients, and how do you get them returning to your business? The last part of this is the idea of a client appreciation party. So things to really show your customers, your clients, both corporate as well as individuals, that you value them and you want them to continue coming back to your business. We believe that this will help secure them into the future and will allow you to really implement the next 2 phases of this plan successfully.
So the second phase is really about Borealis moving into the online sector. So the first step of this, you really mentioned you wanted to find a way for Borealis to change the product offering that they currently have for their clients already. What we thought of for this is what we would call a watch list. So if a customer goes onto your website and is trying to see what you have at the next auction and the one item they really want isn't there, they would be able to put this item on your website and receive a text, an email, or a letter to let them know when if that item has been received and when it's coming up into auction. This allows people to not have to come to the auctions and really not know what they're looking for. If they want that one thing, they're able to wait, and when Borealis has it, they'll be able to come to that auction. Secondly, would be to invest into that online auction site. So with that, as Lydia mentioned, we looked into expansion to Western Canada, really expanding that base of customers that you can work with. Is you would be able to do this without having to have the brick and mortar set up there. You can really minimize your cost and still have that same type of reach. So with that, we would recommend that you categorize the website based on industry. So people in the agricultural industry aren't looking at tools for the construction industry. They're able to go on your website and really find what they want very quickly. Secondly, to display items coming up for auction in the future. So if someone was to come on Borealis' website and want to sell something, they would be able to choose if they wanted to have it online or bring it to a physical auction or both. So they would be able to put it online, really see what people are thinking about it before bringing it to the auction, or they can have both, or they can pick whether or not they want to have it maybe online for a while, let people take time whether to decide on it, or bring it to the auction to sell it really quickly, get it off their hands, as most of the liquidation services that they currently work with do. And thirdly, comparable items. So for example, if someone's coming and they want a Bobcat, maybe the exact model they have isn't there, but they'd be able to see on the sidebar comparable Bobcats or comparable different equipment that they could use for the same purpose, really allow them to save time on the website and not have to wait for that exact model to show up in the inventory. And finally, we would look for you to be able to set up that search engine optimization. We would recommend that it would be done through the same IT type based site that would develop the website, and that's really based on allowing you to pick certain words that you want to pop up on Google. So really doing some research about which type of auction words or which type of equipment really should be targeted in your search engines so that you can make sure people looking for your services are able to find them in the quickest manner. And finally, as Zach mentioned, prosperity is really about tightening up the operations, allowing you to have that exit strategy so you choose, or have a valuable company when you look towards an IPO in the future. So with that, we would recommend to discontinue the dividend policy. We do recognize you are very committed to this move. You're willing to take that $30,000 a year salary. So we would recommend that you also discontinue the dividends so that you're able to really use this cash to reinvest into the business. Secondly, to introduce summer interns. The reason why we're looking towards summer interns is because it's low cost, and currently you're not really looking to hire on a lot of full-time staff. These summer interns can do cold calling, they can really pursue those repair shops Zach mentioned, or even look towards companies to partner with, really allow you to grow your impact within Ontario without having to pay the large labor fees that you would if you had a full-time employee doing such a thing. And finally, to utilize the online auction to expand to the new regions, really allowing you to test new markets. If you're looking to expand into Western Canada in the future, you can know which provinces are really using your auctions and really allow you to optimize any expansions that you would look into for the future.
So now when you actually go to the bank to try and receive this loan, there are a couple things that we want to highlight. So first, the stability of the business. When they do first take that look at the financial statement, they might be deterred by that negative retained earnings, but we really want you to explain what we explained today, that is due to that dividend policy, and that you will be restricting dividends for 3 years, so that they really see the financial stability. Second, we suggest that you apply for debt to cover the acquisition and half a year of operations. So when we look at the available line of credit and the equity that you yourselves are willing to put in, we suggest an amount of $575,000, and we would suggest repaying this over those 5 years. So when you do look to that exit strategy, the company isn't hindered by that long-term debt. So this brings us to a principal repayment of $115,000 per year. So looking at the timeline, first of all, set up that meeting with Mr. Lim. What we see is that you can't really continue to lock down this funding. 1 month from now, purchasing Borealis auctions. We do want you to get on this as quickly as possible. Within 2 months, setting up those client meetings, really transferring the goodwill to the new management. 6 months from now, having that client appreciation party. Again, really locking down these, even though there is new management on board. 1 year from now, we suggest doing the website development. Now we want to make sure that you learn the company, really learn the industry before you make this big shift, which is why we suggest waiting for that 1 year mark. And then three years from now, this is when we suggest you start looking to the other regions. So looking at cost, we have a total cost of $325,000, including all of this part of the plan. And we see 5-year metrics of 30% year-over-year growth, your goal for the company, a buyer list of 4,000 grown from that 1,000, and an NPV of 1.8 million, really showing that you have achieved that growth. So we do see a risk, which we invite you to ask us about in the question and answer period. What we see is that we're growing. Thank you.
So the big question I have is, why so much borrowing? Why $575,000 when they're raising enough equity to only borrow $300,000 and buy the company? Why the $575,000?
So we do suggest the 575, really so that you do have that stability for the first few years of operations. As we said, Canada really is in that recession, so we see that being able to sell items really quickly could potentially be an issue. So we do want to make sure that you have that stability for those first few years.
So part of that is the 5 C's of credit coming from the bank. We know about that, so collateral, capacity, so on. What would your collateral be to request that kind of financing?
Currently, you do have a summation of personal assets that you're willing to contribute as equity, up to $195,000. We suggest leveraging the current assets that Borealis has, in addition to that personal equity. We believe that this will offer amenable terms to the bank and allow you to get that loan.
So again, what would be the tangible security that we would like?
So the tangible security would be some of those assets that Borealis does have right now. So we would suggest creating an agreement where the 575 is contingent on the purchase of Borealis, with once you do purchase, really canonizing that loan so that they are taking it on and really having those assets. So we do know that you have this personal relationship with Mr. Lim. So we suggest really utilizing that, explaining this to him, having an airtight contact so he does see that he would be able to acquire those assets.
One of the strategies is to advertise in repair shops, to cause people to not have repairs but to purchase new equipment. If I'm the owner of a repair shop, why would I let you advertise in my shop? You're just going to take business away from me.
Yeah, definitely. That definitely could be a concern, but really how we see it is it doesn't only have to be people buying brand new equipment, because as you are an auction house, it is quite often used. So for example, if someone brings in an item and it may be very expensive for them to fix, they may utilize your auction house in order to sell it there and really just sell it for parts, be able to get money and go buy a new item. We also think this is a great idea because if you're owning that repair house, a lot of people who work for you probably are doing their own work on the side. They're really repairing up old models. This would allow them to see how they would have that physical way to go sell their items as well. So you're really allowing both your customers and your workers to see a new way that they would be able to utilize to use their equipment in the future.
So online online auctions are going to be a big part of the growth in the future. Do you have a sense of how much that will be of your growth? And then also my question would be, you suggested that you wouldn't start web development until a year out, given that there will be, multiple months of development activity. Even if you purchase a kind of an already baked platform, you're probably not going to see significant revenues out of online until 2 years out. Can you give me any thinking on that?
Yeah, so in that 5-year NPV we were looking at, really in the first year of that website coming out, we forecasted an increase to your sales of around 3-4%. And as that moves forward and we feel that the website would be able to have a larger market share, it grows by around 2.5% a year. Obviously, we do think that that could have a much larger growth, but we did really want to present numbers which were a lot more feasible than giving a huge percent which may not be attainable in the future.
What strategy do you have for the movement of goods for online sales? Who's responsible for that?
The behest of the seller. So for a fee, Borealis Auctions can help facilitate that transition from the seller to the purchaser. Again, that would be for a fee, and that would also be a smaller line of revenue for this business. However, it would be upon the seller to deliver it to the customer.
Do you feel that'll hinder your strategy if you're trying to move goods and the cost that that would incur from somewhere in Western Canada to somewhere in Ontario or otherwise?
We do see this, as Zach had mentioned, as really the seller having that option of doing online sales, and so we would suggest that they potentially add this to that value. So saying that, I'm not going to take less than $150,000, knowing that $20,000 would be going into sales, as well as potentially having the option of Borealis taking it on for a fee. So we do see it as not being a huge deterrent if that customer realistically is willing to pay that end higher cost to have it shipped to them.
That is our time.